Good afternoon. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. We'll go ahead and get started. Please allow me to introduce you to Dr. Bill Dischinger. Dr. Bill Dischinger is a distinguished orthodontist treating patients at Dischinger Orthodontics in Lake Oswego, Oregon. Dr. Dischinger completed his undergraduate studies at Oregon State University and earned his DMD at Oregon Health and Science University and his certificate in orthodontics at Tufts University. Dr. Dischinger is an international lecturer and an adjunct professor at the University of Pacific School of Dentistry Department of Orthodontics in San Francisco, California. He's a prolific writer about orthodontics, having written many articles in the book Spectacular Smiles, Superior Customer Service, Today's Orthodontics. He is a Damon System certified educator and holds memberships in several prestigious organizations, including the American Association of Orthodontists, the Pacific Coast Society of Orthodontists, the American Dental Association, and the Oregon State Dental Association. Today, Dr. Dischinger is going to be discussing how to transform the patient experience using dental monitoring's features and tools that will delight today's consumer. If you have any questions for Dr. Dischinger during his presentation, please do not hesitate to use the chat feature to ask your questions, or the questions feature, sorry. All questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Dr. Dischinger.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Is that working on the share?
Yes, looks good. Thanks.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you everybody for either joining us today or later on through the recording. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here and just sharing our experience and the experience of our patients using dental monitoring. So thank you so much for taking time. I've been known to dress this way. It's kind of my outlet, I guess. This is myself and my son. He was caddying for me. And why am I showing this picture? Well, when I was a kid, that was my first job. My first job was as a caddy. I would caddy at the golf club that my dad played at, and I would caddy on Thursday afternoons and Saturday mornings. And my dad always played on Saturday mornings, so he was usually out there, and sometimes I was in his group caddy, and sometimes I wasn't, but because he never took me as a caddy. He was like, look, you're going to have someone else give you some money, not me. But he was always there on Saturday mornings, but he was never out there on Thursday afternoons. And I remember asking my dad, like, all your buddies play on Thursday afternoons as well. They play Thursday afternoon, Saturday morning. That was kind of like back in the day. That was the men's day or times or whatever with the men's club. And he never played Thursday. And he says, well, Bill, my job isn't like those other guys. Those other guys, they're able to be out of the office and the business can still be running. As an orthodontist, I'm the one that has to be there. I'm the one that has to be treating the patients. I have to essentially be in the mouth for the business to operate, for us to make money. And so that's just not the way that it works as an orthodontist. And that stuck with me for a long time. And when I entered practice 25 years ago and we practiced together, that was my mindset as well. But we're going to talk about how that's probably a little different in today's world. I love this statement. I don't know who made it. I think I'm going to start taking credit for it, but disruption's not the end of the road. It's a detour to a better destination. And I love that because, disruption's hard. COVID was hard, but there was also some things that came out of it. But, when something comes into our life as a disruptor, whether it's something that's a trial that we're going through, or it's a new technology, we can look at it in two ways. We can look at it as a threat, or we can look at it as a bummer, or we can look at it as an opportunity. And to me, looking at this technology of dental monitoring, which is a total disruptor within our specialty, in my opinion, I believe it's a route or a detour to a better destination. Let's talk about what are patients looking for? What is it that our patients really are trying to find out there in their orthodontic care? Let's talk about Smile Direct Club. They're not around anymore, and no standing ovation for that. I actually feel like Smile Direct Club really wasn't a threat to us. I feel like it provided a service to a segment of the population that probably wasn't going to come see us anyways. Now, did they go about it the right way? Probably not. But it did provide a lower fee treatment to some people that probably couldn't afford our full orthodontic fees. And I, on a side note, not to get going down a rabbit hole, I do think us as orthodontists need to figure out how we can serve that population. It's not about figuring out how we can make money off that. It's about how can we serve that population in a way that needs to be taken care of. Those people that, you know what, they just want to have the right to have some straight front teeth, but they can't afford our full orthodontic services. If we if we sometimes say, you know what, we're not going to treat you if we don't fix your bite or this, that, and the other, I feel like we're doing a disservice to some people out there. Anyway, sorry, that's total rabbit hole. But okay, so Smile Direct Club. I want to talk about what patients saw in the positives with Smile Direct Club. So I did a Google search last year when they were still in business in Portland, Oregon, where I live, just Smile Direct Club, Portland, Oregon. And this is what I found on the Google reviews. A 4.7 rating with over 930 Google reviews. I mean, that's phenomenal. That's some positive feedback right there. I think all of us in practice, we would take that. We would take 930 Google reviews with a 4.7. That's positive feedback, and that's a strong indicator that you're doing a good job. But what were they saying about the reviews? Number one was friendly, which is interesting. But look at what number 2 and 3 are: easy and quick. Do we get described as easy and quick as orthodontists? I don't think so. That's not how I remember my orthodontics, easy and quick. My dad treated me, and I can tell you that there's a lot of experimentation that happened on me. But most of our patients would not describe their experience as easy and quick. And for those of us when we're doing our new patient consults and we have a parent and a child in there, what does a parent typically say to their child about the orthodontic experience? It's usually not very good. Now, granted, what we're doing now is a lot nicer and easier, and it is quicker, but that still would not be how our current patients would describe us. Another thing that I want us to think about is this lecture that Dr. Chris Benson gave last year, and just shout out to Chris Benson. I think he's one of the highest quality gentleman in our specialty. Obviously, he's not an orthodontist, but just everything he's done for our specialty has been phenomenal. He's president of the AAOF right now, and just a wonderful, wonderful human being. And when he presents, he's kind of like the old ads: when E.F. Hutton speaks, you listen. For those of you that are younger generation, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but it was a commercial that they used to do back in the day. But when Chris Benson speaks, I listen because he knows what's going on within our field. He knows what's going on within the economy of our field. But he gave this lecture on uncertain winds of a challenged economy. But one of the things he talked about was the workforce shortages, and just I wish we could do a show of hands of all of us that are fully staffed, because it would be a very small number of us that raise our hands. It's very difficult right now, especially in the clinical setting of our practices, to be fully staffed and to have a full team of what we need. It's just hard to find people. I don't know what happened during COVID. People decided they weren't going to work, and I wish I had found that elixir that they found during COVID, but most of us have to work still. We're all running a little bit short. The problem is, and I'm not going to go through this graph, it just is a graph that he showed, but basically what it's showing is that the number of dental assistants that are coming out is going down. It's going down. The number of doctors is not changing. If anything, it's gone up just a tiny bit, and it's trending up a little bit more, but the number of hygienists and dental assistants that are coming out of school is decreasing. Those schools are closing. Less people are applying for those jobs. And then and I don't have the graph of this, but he talked about the retirement rate. The retirement rate of our team members is increasing. So they're either retiring or leaving the field of dentistry earlier than they used to. And so we have more people leaving the field, less people coming into it. So we're going to have workforce shortages actually increasing moving forward. Sorry to give everybody a downer today, but that's just the reality. So we have to get more efficient. We have to get more efficient because we're being forced to, because of our inability to have a full complement of team. We also have to get more efficient because that's what our patients are demanding from us. Our patients are demanding that we get quick and easy. Remember? Now, quick and easy doesn't mean a decreased quality of care. Quick and easy means that they want to be in and out of our office, they want to be in and out of treatment, or they want to not have to take as much of their personal time to come into our practices. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Again, going back on COVID, I think one of the biggest disruptors that we've had in many, many generations, definitely the biggest disruptor I've had in my lifetime. But what are some of the things that came out of COVID that were great? Well, I mean, Ted Lasso for one, The Last Dance, Michael Jordan. But from a practical standpoint, what are some of the things that came out of COVID? Well, I don't know about you, but I was not doing any sort of virtual appointments prior to COVID. As a matter of fact, I kind of frowned upon it. I just thought, people want to come in and see me. I'm cool, I'm hip. They want to see my Air Jordans that I'm wearing that day. People don't want to come in and see me. And one of the things that we had to do during COVID is we had to start doing some virtual appointments for people. There were some people that we needed to see what was going on. In Oregon, we were shut down for nearly 3 months, and that's a long time for some of these patients that maybe hadn't been seen for close to 3 months, even prior to the closing. They were going to be going close to 6 months without us seeing, and we just couldn't do that and feel comfortable with their health care. So we started using some virtual monitoring, and it really opened my eyes to kind of the power of what virtual monitoring could do for us. So we started using a product where we would ortho screening, where we would send a link to the patients. They would upload pictures, and then we would manually be able to look at them. And so this is a patient that was in clear aligners. This is her second appointment. Her first appointment was when we delivered them, and this is when we saw her the second time, and everything was tracking well. We continue with your clear aligners, and then we'll see you for your refinement scan when it comes to that point. She finished up with 10 months of treatment. We saw her for 4 appointments. We saw her for a delivery of her aligners. We saw her for a refinement scan once COVID was lifted. We saw her for the delivery of those refinement aligners, and then we saw her for the removal of the attachments. It wasn't a hard treatment. It wasn't a super long treatment, 10 months, but this is the type of efficiency that we need to get to on these easier cases. Harder cases, obviously, we're going to need to see them a little bit more in practice, but we'll look at that in a second. But 10 months of treatment, just seeing a patient 4 times, 2 of which are very, very short appointments, that's the level that I saw that we could get to. So that's what we wanted to work towards. In 2021, I saw a lecture that just blew my mind, and it changed how I thought about orthodontics. It changed my view of what I had always had. It changed that view that my dad had instilled in me about needing to be in the office to take care of our patients. And the lecture was given by Dr. John Warford in South Dakota, and he was showing what he was doing in his practice. And this guy was starting 900 clear aligner cases a year, or no, I'm sorry, 600 clear aligner cases a year, and he was personally working 9 days a month. I want to restate that: 600 clear aligner cases a year plus braces cases, and he was working 9 clinical days a month, him personally. I heard that, and I was like, okay, I need to drink from his fountain. I need to find out how he's doing this. And so he was putting on a course showing the technology that he was using, showing the systems that they had in place in their practice. And that's really what changed the course of my career, really, in my opinion. And I want to thank Dr. Warford. I personally don't feel he gets the credit that he deserves for everything that he is doing and the teaching that he's putting out there and showing us how to be more efficient. I really think that he's a pioneer in our specialty, and I just want to thank him. And just if you've never heard of him, look him up. He's pretty phenomenal, and he's just a cool dude. But what level of efficiency can we get to? Well, he was speaking on dental monitoring, and he was showing how he was using dental monitoring within his practice. And I'm not going to get into, how patients use the scan box with their phone, but this picture right here, if you've never seen it, this is when you put it together, this is what the patients use to hook their phone up to take their intraoral photos. And the photos that they're taking, I'm going to show you some here. I got to be honest with you, they're better sometimes than what we're getting in our office. Patients do a great job with this. But let's look at the power of this technology. So this is a patient, Jotaro, and I've showed this young man for a little while now, because I think it really shows what this technology does for us, how it, one, helps us be more efficient, but even better, how it helps us deliver a higher quality result for a patient in a way that's less disruptive to their life. So this is his dashboard. This is showing, if you've never seen this, on the top. It's funny. I like point on my screen as if you could see my hands pointing. Obviously you can't, but if you look up at the top, oh look, I got my mouse. Hopefully you can see that. So this is all these numbers right here. These are when he's taking his picture. So he's using that scan box with his phone, taking his pictures, and if they get a green circle, that means that the aligners are fitting well. So at day 7, the aligners are fitting well, and they're ready to move forward to that next aligner. Why this is so important is, how many times do you have a patient that, let's say you give them their aligners and you have them back in 8 weeks or 10 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever your interval is, and they come in and those aligners do not fit. They have a tooth that hasn't been tracking. You see that big space between the tooth and the clear aligner, and you're thinking, gosh, I wonder how long that thing's been not tracking well. Like, how much time did we just lose? Well, with dental monitoring, you know the week that it stops fitting, if it does stop fitting, you know immediately. And so this is a typical teenage boy. And if you see, this is number 4 right here. So for the first 3 weeks, he did great. He was wearing his aligners just like he's supposed to. He's excited about treatment. Around that 3rd, 4th week, he kind of started getting a little cocky, like, I probably don't need to wear these quite as much. Like, I'm wearing them and my teeth are moving like they're supposed to. I'm getting my green goes. I can move to the next aligner. And at number 4, he kind of started slacking, and all of a sudden he had a tooth not quite there when he took that first scan. It was like a wake-up call, like, oh great, I need to start using this, or using these liners a little bit more. And so we held him for 3 days. And you can set up your parameters of how long you want to hold a patient if it doesn't fit, like 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. In our office, we do 3 days. And 3 days later, he retook the scan. As you can see, number 4, now it was fitting like it's supposed to. And look at this guy. He goes 3 more weeks again, doing a good job. And then all of a sudden, he falls off the wagon again. He got 3 no-goes in a row, which is unusual. Typically, if they get a second no-go, well, not typically, but when they get a second no-go, that's when the AI notifies me, the doctor, hey, you need to take a look at this. At their first no-go, they get an automatic message from the AI, and they're told, hey, you got to use your clenchies or chewies a little bit more. In our office, we use a brand called Clenchy, and clenchies are the replacement for chewies. I feel they work a little bit better. So check out Clenchies if you want to. I really like them. It was started by a dental assistant, so it's a really cool company. But anyway, so at the second one, I personally got notified to look at it, and it was really close. And I had looked at the first no-go compared to the second no-go, and I'm gonna show you some examples of this here in just a little bit. But the second no-go looked better than the first no-go. Like the one tooth that wasn't tracking well was starting to get better. And so I said, you know what, let's give this guy another 3 or 4 days. I can't remember what I said, but I will specify specifically how many days I want him to go if we get to that point. And so we went that next 3 or 4 days, and look, he got a green go. It started fitting. So then he did great for a little while, got a little lazy again, did great, got a little lazy, and it just kind of kept going. Like every 3 or 4 weeks, he'd get a little lazy, but we'd get him back on track. And eventually, at number 32, this is the pictures at number 32, things are tracking wonderfully. Haven't seen him back in my office at this point. We're 9 months in, but we haven't seen him back in the office. Here he is now at 36 aligners. We've seen him. Sorry that my ugly face is covering up what's showing up there, but we have seen him one time in the office. That was for the delivery. Now we have seen him every single week virtually. I've personally seen him probably every month virtually. That's when I get pinged to look at him. But look at how great his case is looking now at, and sorry, this is 10 months. This is at 10 months, 1 appointment. We're 36 aligners in. We haven't needed to have him back into our practice, and we've kept him on track. So we've accomplished a number of things. We've accomplished keeping him on track, keeping our treatment going how we want it to, which is wonderful, obviously. We're giving him a great result at this point, and we haven't been intrusive into his life. Have we been quick and easy? Don't know if we've been quick. This case is going to take us some time. It wasn't just a straightforward, easy case. Have we been easy? We certainly have. So we're definitely accomplishing that. Here he is finished. It took me 20 months. I had a little issue kind of settling the posterior occlusion, and this picture on the lower right, he's not quite biting all the way down. I can tell you his occlusion looks better than that. But 20 months, but 4 appointments. Now, I did 3 rounds of aligners. So I had his initial set of aligners and two refinement sets of aligners. How did I accomplish that in 4 appointments? Well, we're going to talk about that. There's a product called Smart STL. And Smart STL are STL files generated with a combination of dental monitoring. In our case, it's Spark. And there's other companies that DentalMonitoring is working with this technology right now. But right now, Spark is the main one that they have this with. And so what Smart STL is you can use it for refinements, or you can use it for your final retainers. So what the technology does, or what the software does, is they take your initial intraoral scan that you did in office, so that intraoral scan that you took. They then look at the last active stage that they're at. So if you're having to do like a mid-course correction, they will look at what stage the patient's currently on. If they're at the final stage, look at that final stage STL. And then they will also then look at the scans that the patient's taking, those pictures they're taking on their phone. They'll take all 3 of those and they will merge it all together. And that's what generates this STL. So it generates an STL like what we would do with our intraoral scan without having to have the patient in to take a new intraoral scan. And then that will be transferred either internally to us if we're going to use it to make retainers at the end of treatment, or in our case to Spark if we're going to make refinement aligners. It goes straight to one of those two places. And we can use that STL that was generated from that combination of technology to make their next set of aligners or to make their retainers. We've been doing this in our office for about 18 months now, and we've done a lot of it. And in that time, we've had 2 patients that when we got the new aligners didn't fit properly. What we found out from both of those patients is in that 3-week turnaround period, as we're waiting for our new aligners, they did not wear their aligner at nighttime to hold it. That's what we tell patients to do, is go to nighttime. You need to use this as a retainer. We need to keep your teeth where they're at. And they didn't follow through with that. And they admitted that. So those are the only 2 patients that we have not had this fit properly. And it was patient compliance issues. So this technology is phenomenal. So for Jotaro, who I just showed, we had an initial delivery. So that was appointment 1. For his refinement scan, we did it with a Smart STL. So no appointment in office. He came in for a grab and go pickup. I typically don't change my attachments when I do a refinement, unless I have a tooth that I've seen that I did the attachment wasn't quite correct for that. And sometimes we'll mix it up. But in general, we like to not change our attachments. So with Spark, we don't take attachments off and then put new attachments back on at the refinement. We use the current attachments that are there. So we had initial delivery. We then had a Smart STL scan, so no appointment. He came in for just a grab and go, which he basically just comes in, pops the aligners and makes sure they fit, and he's out the door. Could you mail them to the patient? You could. At this point, we're only doing that for people that live out of town, for patients that we treat that live out of town. So I have a patient that lives in Hong Kong that we use this technology for, and that's a big ship charge, so they pay for the shipping. But I saw that patient in office one time to deliver him, and he's so far now been just being treated by Smart STL and then shipping the aligners to him. So he came in for that grab and go. We didn't quite get all the way there with his occlusion, so I did another Smart STL. He came in for a second grab and go. So that's his 3rd appointment. Things look great. 4th appointment was when I removed all of his attachments. So 4 appointments in office for 20 months of treatment. That's efficient. That's easy for the patient, and that's getting to that efficiency level that we need to have within our practice. Dr. Chris Benson, Chris, well, you might be a PhD somewhere, but Chris gave this lecture that I was talking about. He was talking about also, as especially if orthodontics is changing, as we're getting more digital, we'll be able to run our practices with a smaller real estate footprint. We don't need these big, huge Taj Mahal practices or buildings. with the technology, we can be a little bit more refined, a little bit more efficient. We can run it with less team members because we're going to have to. I'm not saying we're laying off team members because we're not laying people off. We don't have people when people retire or leave, we haven't been able to replace them. But we can do it with a smaller real estate. So for those of you that are out there looking for a new building or building a place or getting a new lease, we probably don't need as big a space as we used to. So that's that efficiency level taking advantage right there. So I get asked those questions all the time. Okay, if we never see our patients, are they going to pay us? Like that used to be the thing in ortho. You would have them come in once a month so they could write you your check. They used to have the little coupon books that, the patient come and rip that off, write their check and hand it to the front desk. Are they going to pay us? So OrthoFi has done a great job of really showing us what happens. Their data is incredible. But 95% of defaults occur within treatment time, and almost all of them happen within the first 6 months of treatment. So it's very early on. If people are not going to pay us, that's when it occurs. And I'm going to show you a slide here in a second, but the average collection on defaulted contracts is $2,400. So that's more than paid our lab bill. So even if we do get defaulted, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay financially. But I want you to look at this slide. This is pretty incredible. So what this is showing is the average payables, or the average people that are paying their account in OrthoFi is 97%. So there's a 3% delinquency rate on average around across the country for OrthoFi clients. The Gauge average, so Gauge, if you don't know, is a company that looks at all the metrics within your practice, both clinical, financial, scheduling, all that. The average Gauge client is 95%. So just a little bit lower, but still acceptable. I want you to look at this one though. Practices that are using dental monitoring and OrthoFi together, seeing people less than 3 times in a year. Okay, so on average, seeing patients 3 times or less in a year have a 98% pay rate. So somehow the practices that are using both dental monitoring and OrthoFi have a better delinquency rate than those that are not using dental monitoring. So the lesson here is people don't have to be in your office to pay you. As a matter of fact, they're probably happier to not be in your office. I've said this in lectures before. If people came in for initial consultation, we gave them a pill to take and told them, call us when your teeth are straight, they'd buy that. They'd buy that in a heartbeat. I joked with Glenn Krieger in a podcast I did with them that we're not that cool. People don't want to come in and see us. They would rather do other things with their life. So don't worry about not seeing your patient in office and thinking that they're not going to pay you. That just isn't true. The data shows it. The data proves it. So let me show you some examples of dental monitoring at work in our practice. So this is a patient. I get a notification of, look at the lovely hygiene this kid's having. I mean, it's disgusting. I don't know how people walk around like this with their teeth as gross as they are. It's just, teenage boy, this guy's never getting a date. Come on, man, get your teeth cleaned up. So that's what I used to tell I have 4 boys, and like when they're all in braces, I'm like, you guys got to brush your teeth or no one's going to talk to you. So we use texting, and we also use Microsoft Teams for all of our communication within our practice. And so I'm blocking out the last names on here, but this is the message that I put out to my team. Eliza send a C letter. So we grade our patients on their brushing, a C brushing letter to parents and dentists. Review hygiene again at next visit. Make sure we have mom back in the clinic to have her be a part of this hygiene review. I would argue that for hygiene alone, dental monitoring is worth it. I mean, if we're seeing our patients every 8-10 weeks, which is what most of our rotations are on nowadays, we don't know what's happening to their brushing during that time period. And a lot of things can start going wrong. With dental monitoring, we're seeing them every single week, and the AI picks up on bad brushing. This was the AI that notified us on this. And we've been watching this for a little while, been sending messages to them. And finally, this was like the 3rd time in a row that we got this negative brushing. And it's okay, it's time to bring them in, and we need to have an in-office consultation with them. So just for hygiene alone, I think dental monitoring is a bonus in all of our practices. Here's another patient, Sophia. Well, Sophia, she's not doing a good job. So I said, do a refinement. I put notes in Microsoft Teams already for what's going to be submitted. So my team will submit to Spark with their notes in there of what they do. make holding retainers in-house for her, as I think this has been the issue. So as you can see up here, she's gone off the rails a couple times. Okay, she's gone off the rails a couple times. We've had conversations with them about, should we switch to braces? Should we continue with the liners? What do you want to do? Well, we want to keep trying with the liners. Okay, well, we'll see. But when we delivered our liners, it's hard to see in this because again, my face is covering it up. But she had trouble right from the get-go fitting properly. It was very early on. So what I felt like was going on was she wasn't doing a good job wearing the retainers or the liners at nighttime, holding it while we're waiting for the refinement, and they weren't fitting very well. Like, look at this liner here down below. I mean, that fits. It doesn't even go in the mouth. So I said, let's make some in-house retainers so we know they fit perfectly and they're comfortable then, and we'll hold her while we're waiting for the refinement aligners to come in. So that's, again, just kind of seeing where we've had some issues with this patient and adjusting. We normally wouldn't do that, but we're able to make an adjustment based on what we've seen with dental monitoring. Another example here on communication. So this is a patient that hasn't been taking scans. So if they're not following up with their scans, the AI will generate a message to them. So the AI is tracking when they're supposed to have a scan, and if they're not, within 1 day late, they get an automated message. This person kept struggling, and we were reaching out to them now personally. This was us. She writes back, "Hi, sorry I lost my phone. I will scan ASAP today." Now, I'm sorry, a teenager doesn't lose their phone for 3 weeks. We all know that. If they lost their phone for 3 weeks, they literally would not be able to get out of bed. So we know that we're getting a little bit of she's making this up. She didn't send in her scan ASAP. We reached out again. Grace, you're still not following through. We need to see you. Matter of fact, she went 46 days. Now we've been calling them. So at this point, we're calling them, we're emailing them, we're texting them, we're reaching out to the parents, we're reaching out through the DM app. This doesn't happen very often. This is a very unusual case, and I want you to know, because I always get asked the question, what's your compliance rate of following through? And maybe at the end, someone from Dental Monitor can tell me, but I think that at one point, I know we were leading the country in compliance, but we have a dedicated DM coordinator. She spends about 2.5 hours a day. So 2.5 hours a day is what she spends on monitoring all of our dental monitoring stuff. And she's on top of it. She doesn't let people fall through the cracks on this. And we were, I think, around 97 or 98% compliance, which was pretty good on people getting their scans in. But she just kept missing. So finally, okay, we're like, okay, Grace, we're going to do a refinement. I put the notes in Microsoft Teams for the submission, but we need to find out if braces would be a better option. She's gone almost 2 months without a scan. So that was my communication to my team. And so we're going to have this conversation. Look, you're a train wreck. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. What do we need to do to help you be successful? I get asked the question a lot, like, how do you charge if you are switching a patient from aligners to braces? In our office, for our new patients in the consultation, what their fee structure is if they want to do braces are $300 more in our office than aligners. So I'm going to say that again in case you missed that. Braces are $300 more in our office. People kind of get confused by that because normally it's the other way around. One, I like to do aligners. I think we're more efficient with aligners in our practice. When we're doing braces, I have to see them a lot more in our practice than I am with our aligner patients. So if I'm using clear aligners, whether that be Spark, Invisalign, Angel aligners, whatever it is, we use all three of those in our practice. We're seeing them less often, as you've seen with braces. We still have to see them in practice. We still have to change their wires. So we tell the patient, we're going to spend more of our personal time with you, which is our biggest cost. So we're going to charge you $300 more. Now, where's the beauty of that? If we have a patient like this that just is a mess and will not do what they're supposed to do, we'll switch them over to braces. And we get to ask the question from the parents, how much is this going to cost me? Well, in the past, if it was a family I really liked, they're like the fourth kid, and I'll just do it for free. Don't worry about it. If it's a family that's a total PETA, and I don't like, $1,000, but it was somewhere between free and $1,000, typically around $500. And $500 is a big hit. Now what we do is I just tell them, or my team tells them, remember how when you started it was going to be $300 more for braces compared to aligners? We're just going to charge you that. We're just going to charge you that $300 fee that it would have been if you start with braces anyways. So you're not out any more money than you would have been if you start with braces. I can tell you that has been such a marketing positive thing in our practice. The goodwill that that has created is just wonderful. Now, do patients maybe switch over to braces more often than they did? They do. And it's, it's the teenagers, but that's okay, because if they're not going to wear their aligners, their treatment's going to drag on forever. We're going to be inefficient. We're going to be doing refinements and deliveries and all this stuff. Even with using smart STL, it's still going to be a hassle. I'm spending more time on my computer doing all these setups. The other thing is that as a family, do you think that they're going out and marketing for you? No, they're telling their friends, you know what? This sucks. Like, we paid this money for these clear aligners. They don't work. That we're not getting our teeth. Johnny's teeth are not getting straight. Yada yada yada. So um, when we switch them over to braces and they wind up not having to pay a big fee, it winds up being what it would have been anyways. They're telling their friends, you know what? If the clear aligners don't work, don't worry about it. It's okay. Dr. Bill will switch it, and he's not even going to charge you more than what he would have charged you to begin with. So it's been a really positive marketing thing for us. So I if you're not doing it that way, I encourage you just to look at it. I'm not saying it's the right way to do it. I'm just telling you it's been a really good thing in our practice. So here's another patient. And so we're doing some sequential distalization of both arches on this, trying to make room for the canines. It's a tough case. We're not very far into it. We're only, 3-4 months in, and we get this notification that upper right 2 isn't tracking. Well, upper right 2 right now is not my concern. I'm not worried about upper right 2. So I'm saying, and the name kind of got butchered up there. I didn't black it out because the autocorrect made it not even this girl's name, but to keep going. Lots of big movements that we need to do. That's that distalization that I'm doing. So we can get the upper right 2 later down the road. So the upper right 2 is not seating properly. We're starting to lose some traction on it. Not badly, as you can see here. It's not a bad mistrack, it's just a little bit. So I'm not worried about it because I got these big movements I got to accomplish. Let's get further down the road and let's create the space for the canines. We'll re-grab the lateral later. So that's an indication there where not tracking, but that's okay. In a case like this, I'm okay with that one tooth not tracking. So here's a patient that's got a combination of aligners and some brackets, missing the lower left 5. We got a TAD in place. We're protracting the lower molars to close up that missing 5 space. I personally like to have brackets on that posterior segment. I've tried it with and without brackets. I've tried it with just some buttons. This works better. It keeps the molar upright as you're protracting it forward. And so we're getting an unseat on that lower left 4. Well, that lower left 4 has a bracket. I'm not worried about it. So I'm like, that's fine. We're bringing the 6 and 7 forward with the TAD. We'll recover that lower left 4 later. Let's just keep moving. Let's get the molars brought forward. Because I know once I get those molars brought forward, even with brackets, we all know this, even with brackets, when you protract molars, you're going to get some tipping. You're going to have to rebond it or redo it or whatever you need to do. You're going to have some work left on those molars once they get them forward. So no worries. Let's finish bringing them forward. We'll deal with that forward down the road. But the TAD has come loose, so we need to replace it. Look at this picture. That TAD's coming loose. So again, using dental monitoring, we picked up right when that TAD started to come loose. This was the first day that it had. We brought the kid in. He was actually just in 2 days ago. I put the TAD back in a little bit different location. I actually moved it distal to the canine instead of between the 2 and the 3. I don't remember why I had it between the 2 and 3. Normally I wouldn't place it there, but there was some reason at delivery why I did. But moved it back between 3 and 4. We didn't lose any time. We didn't lose our anchorage, and we're off and running. So again, DM picking up on mistakes that are happening within the mouth. So these are all examples of things that really help us. How about wire checks? Well, with braces, this is how we're doing it. So Bill added Jennifer P to your to-do list. So here's Jennifer P. And so she's in her initial wires, and I look at this trying to decide what am I going to do for the next wire change. Look at this lower right 4-5 area. See that? I was like, is that 5 off? Did the AI not pick it up? So I'm kind of looking at it from the occlusal view, and I don't know. So I blow it up. No, that 5 bracket's right where it's supposed to. It's still on there. It's attached. Just for whatever reason, we're having a little bit of a slow correction on that lower left 4 and 5. Right 4 and 5's, a little bit off, but not nearly. That's gone a little bit quicker. But this lower left 4 and 5 needs a little bit more work because normally we'd be placing a 14-25 in the lower at about 10 weeks into treatment. So this patient is not ready for that 14-25. So I wrote put the upper 18275. That's a type of wire that we use with our Damon Ultima brackets at 275. Anyways, long story, but the lower wasn't ready for the 14275. So put a lower 018 in, continue our dolphins. Dolphins are the rubber bands we're using at the time. Add a wire 20 in 4 weeks. So I want to have her back a little bit sooner in between the appointment with it she was already scheduled for and when our pan and repo appointment is scheduled, because I needed to get the 14225, 14275 down lower. You can do that on a non-doctor day, because I've seen this patient. They don't need to have them in on a doctor day to change the wires. They can do that on a non-doctor day. I'll get into that in just a little bit on non-doctor days. I put it in Microsoft Teams, so you can see here that I got those notes in Microsoft Teams, and they're going to use that then when they're pulling it, when that patient comes in, they'll pull up Microsoft Teams and see what they're supposed to do. So what could all this mean for our practices? This efficiency level, what's it do for our practices? So in our practice, I can tell you that we have reduced the number of appointments in office, and these are just some stats from the last few years, of 16%. So we're seeing a total of 16% less appointments in our office overall since the implementation of dental monitoring in our office in 2021. That's a big deal. I mean, that's a great thing. I'm going to get into doctor time in just a little bit. But what's my team say about this technology? Because a lot of times you introduce a new technology into your practice, your team's like, "Holy cow, we have one more thing we gotta handle. We're already running busy. We don't have time for one more thing." I can tell you this works the opposite. This is pretty cool. We can allow team members to customize their work schedules to better fit their life, part-time, work from home, etc. So I have a lot of team members that have been longtime team members, starting to have families or moving to different parts of their child rearing lives, or maybe they are getting closer to retirement, but they want to still be involved. So we've been able to customize our work schedule to work around some of our team members. Like if they want to work part-time, I have one person that does our dental monitoring from home. And so she's able to do that part-time from home, but still be an integral part of our team. So a lot of different ways that our team feels like we can customize their work life now compared to what they used to be. Before our change, we were scrambling to find a spot for appointments in our schedule. Now our days are so much smoother and we have openings. You told us we had to trust that this change would make it easier, and now we see it. So when we started working with dental monitoring, we kind of got it on board for a little while, kind of figured out how we're going to do it. And eventually we went to what's called dynamic scheduling. Patients would leave the office without an appointment. That is going to freak the front staff out. For them to have a person walk out without an appointment, it's like, oh my gosh, that is their worst nightmare. And I told them the reason we're doing this is we don't know when we need them back yet, particularly with clear aligners. With clear aligners, you don't know when you're going to need them back. If they're going to track perfectly, and let's say you gave them 20 aligners, are you going to have them back in 20 weeks? Well, what if they don't track perfectly? What if they get a couple holds here or there? What if they don't make their changes every 7 days like they're supposed to, and they miss some days here or there, and they get behind even by a week out of that 20 weeks? They need IPR at stage 12. In 12 weeks, do you know for sure they're going to be at stage 12? What if they got some holds? What if they didn't follow through on changing every 7 days? All those things. So we went to dynamic scheduling, where dental monitoring sends alerts to us when they hit a certain point. So if they have IPR at stage 12, we will get alerted when they're at stage 11. Hey, you need to bring them in next week. Well, if you're like us, how we used to be, you didn't have an appointment next week to bring them in, even for an IPR appointment. But now with dynamic scheduling, we have openings whenever we need them, because we're not scheduling so far in advance. We're scheduling as needed. That's worked out wonderful. So we're not having people come in for appointments they don't need. People come in when they need an appointment. So that's been great. Our appointments are predictable because they know what's coming in. They know what we're going to do before the patient gets there. We don't have to sit around and wait for our doctor to come to the chair. Number one complaint of clinical team, right, is waiting on the doctor. I've already seen the patient virtually. We've already put the notes in of what they're going to do. They don't have to wait for me to come to the chair to tell them. They know when the patient sits down what they're going to do. So my practice life as a doctor, we've reduced our appointments by 28%, doctor appointments. So over a quarter of our doctor appointments have been eliminated in our practice. What does that do? I mean, what's that do for y'all? What's this all mean? Like all those things, what could it mean for our lives and for our practices? It's about time. It's about freeing up time within our practices. So if you could free up a quarter of your doctor time And just so you know, our practice has been growing the last 3 years. Knock on wood, and thankfully, we've been going the right direction for the last 3 years. We've worked hard on that. We've brought in Leanne Panici to help us with some things, and it's been a work, but it's paid off for us. But if we free up 25% of our doctor time, what's that do? So I talked about my dad and his golfing. My dad passed away in October. Many of you know my dad, and he was just a wonderful man. But he passed away in October, and this was a number of years ago. I used to have a bunch of hair back then, um, and I was a little skinnier. But this is what it does. I don't have to be in the mouth or in the office for my practice to continue running. Now, for me, what I've chosen to do is I used to work 15 doctor days a month, and we ran 6 chairs. We now run 11 doctor days a month and 4 chairs. So as we have lost team members, we've not been able to find replacements, and we've chosen not to replace because dental monitoring has taken that up for us. So dental monitoring has replaced 2 clinical staff members over that time period. Remember, this is a growing practice. This isn't a practice that's going down. But I've eliminated 4 doctor days a month. That is time. Now, if you had 4 doctor days freed up in a month, what could you do? You could grow that practice even more. You could start a silent practice. You could merge businesses. There's so much things that you could do with that time. It's totally up to you. So that's what we can do with our practices. Now, we still are running 15 clinical days a month, but my team is running those clinical days because I've already seen those patients virtually, and they're able to do things that without me there legally, because I've virtually seen that patient. They can do deliveries, they can do refinements, they can do all these different things without me there because I've already seen them. So that's what we can do within our practices. So I ask you, what are you going to do? This technology is there. This technology is out there, it's proven, the data shows it. The technology is there to take advantage of it. So I ask you, what are you going to do? I heard a great lecture last year at Orthopreneurs, Dr. Del Toro, and he gave this analogy, and I'm stealing it from him, but I thought it's a great analogy. And this train represents technology, and this train is coming down the tracks. And as it's coming down the tracks, we have a choice to make. We can either stand off to the side and we can just wave at that train as it goes by us, or stand in front and let it run us over. Or we can embrace that technology and we can get on that train. We maybe even drive that train. But the train's coming regardless. So what are we going to do as practitioners? We're kind of at a crossroads with our specialty, in my opinion. And we need to change, and we need to innovate, and we need to become more efficient. So I encourage you to not just listen to this today, but to take this and implement it within your practices.